Now I'm just going to explain all about water quality for you. Besides temperature, the main thing an aquarium hobbyist needs to be concerned about is pH. Now this is not a big issue. Basically what we need to know is what pH does your fish like, and make sure that the pH of the fish which you're purchasing to go into your aquarium like a similar pH to the fish that you've got. With time, your aquarium tends to go acidic because the respiration from the fish and bacteria and waste produced by the fish will make the water acidic. Now typically most town tap water tends to be alkaline, so watch when you're doing your water changes that you don't shock the pH of your fish. There's many commercially available buffers on the market which will help you maintain a high pH or a steady pH, and the introduction of any corals, shells, coral sand, shell grit, anything calcium carbonate based will help to make sure that you do maintain a nice high pH. It's really important when you're altering any water quality, particularly pH, that you do it very gradually, because the fish become accustomed to the pH that you're in at the moment, and you must adjust it slowly. That accounts a lot of the time for why you have what seems to be a healthy aquarium at home. You buy a fish from the aquarium, you take it home, and then that fish dies. Often it's that the water quality in your home aquarium wasn't quite right. The water quality at the shop hopefully was, then it's that individual has been shocked once it's been put into your aquarium. So it's not so much the water quality itself, it's more so the shock that's provided if you change your pH too quickly. So any buffers, any water changes, anything you're doing to alter pH, do it slowly and gradually over time for the safest results. Now essentially all the waste that goes into your aquarium comes from the fish food that you feed. So if you feed too much food in your aquarium, that is the only way that you're basically going to have too much waste in the aquarium. So you feed the food, which is proteins, amino acids and things, the fish will hopefully consume most of the food and will produce waste in the form of ammonia. Now the ammonia is released into the water or as a gas, and little bacteria grow in the filter, on the glass, on the rocks, on the gravel, on any hard surface, and this little bacteria called nitrosomnious bacteria will break the ammonia down into nitrite. Then nitrite is still quite toxic to the fish, ammonia being very toxic to the fish, which is the waste from the fish, then gets broken down by nitrobacter into nitrate. So you've got ammonia getting broken down into nitrite, which gets broken down into nitrate. Ammonia and nitrite are the higher level wastes, which are very toxic to your fish. Nitrate is not as toxic to the fish. Water changes and the presence of denitrification will help to get rid of nitrate, and having larger filters with more bacterial capacity is what gets rid of your ammonia and nitrite. The only time that you really need to be concerned about any of these organics in an aquarium is when you're putting in your fish too quickly. So the best advice I can give you is get small amounts of fish added on a regular basis, with not too many going in at once, to make sure that the amount of bacteria will be stable for the amount of waste being produced by your fish. The way that you get your water quality and clarity as crystal clear as this one is by making sure you've got plenty of filtration on your aquarium. Always overestimate on filtration. Make sure you always wash your filter material in water from the fish tank, not water from the tap, and don't overfeed. So if your water is a little bit cloudy, one thing to try is adding some of the bacterial agents which are available on the market, which increase the amount of bacteria in the aquarium, which will break down any organics and help to clear the aquarium. If that isn't working, you could also try putting in some activated carbon. Don't put the bacterial agents and the activated carbon in at the same time, because the carbon will suck out the bacterial agents, but in general carbon will clear the aquarium and take any odours out of the aquarium. Make sure you remove your carbon after about 1 month. Healthy plants consume low-level wastes like nitrates and phosphates, whereas unhealthy plants decompose and actually increase the amounts of nitrates and phosphates. Plants compete with algae for these low-level wastes as fertilizers. So basically the more plants you have in the aquarium, the less algae you'll tend to get in the aquarium, providing the conditions are desirable for the plants. There are many fish and chemicals that help to control algae, but increasing your water quality and decreasing the duration of light is the simplest way of controlling algae. Be aware of any fish that you put into the aquarium which will eat algae, because some of them will also eat the plants, and be really cautious with any chemicals which claim to reduce algae. Never overdose them. If anything, keep the dose rate as minimal as possible and really look at these algae chemicals as being a last resort. So the key to having a crystal clear aquarium like this one is having plenty of filtration, plenty of aeration. Don't clean out your filter material with tap water, clean it with water from the fish tank, and don't overfeed your fish or have your lights on for too long a period of time. A really common point of confusion is how many litres you've got in your aquarium. To work out the literage of your aquarium, you just go length times height times width in centimetres divided by 1,000 gives you litres. And always know how many litres are in your aquarium and estimate how much water may be displaced due to rocks and gravel and so forth. Because when you're using any medications or dosing the aquarium, it's really important that you remember how many litres are in your aquarium. You wouldn't believe how many times problems have occurred to the tanks due to people overdosing various chemicals because they're not aware of how many litres are in the tank. One of the keys to having a good, healthy tank full of fish is to start with good, healthy fish. When you decide on the type of fish you want to keep, have a good understanding of what this fish should look like. Look to make sure that its eyes are nice and clean and clear, that you don't have any sort of white bacterial hazes over the eyes, which is generally a negative sign to water quality or the general health of the fish. Make sure the scales are well inlined and in good condition. Make sure the fins are of appropriate length, that are not all split. The eye of the fish should be in proportion to the rest of the body, meaning that if you look at various fish within the aquarium, how big the eye of the fish is relative to ones amongst that species will tell whether the fish has been stunted. If a fish has been stunted, it'll be quite a small fish. It'll have what seems to be a proportionately large eye. What you're really looking for is the proportion of the eye, whether the eye is swollen by any means, which could indicate like a bacterial infection, or the haze over the eye. You want the eye clean, clear and sharp. This particular fish is a silver shark, which has got a bacterial infection in its eyes. If you see this eventuating in any of your fish, make sure that your water quality is improved and add an antibacterial medication, and generally increase the amount of salt that's in the water. Make sure the fish are maintaining their position in the water very comfortably, which would be signifying that their swim bladder is intact. If the fish seems to be fighting to get to the bottom or doesn't look comfortable in the water column, you would definitely want to avoid that fish. Make sure when you're buying the fish that the fins, particularly the pectoral fins, are very clean and clear. Various diseases, fungal, bacterial and parasitic diseases very much show up on the pectoral fin of the fish. Make sure that the pectoral fin is clean and clear and that the fish is waving the pectoral fin comfortably, not performing erratic movements with the pectoral fin. That will generally indicate irritation of a parasitic nature. When you see them shimmying in one spot or scratching against the rocks, that may indicate that they have contracted a parasitic infection which will spread and develop. By far the most common problem that you'll experience would be white spot. White spot is a disease which is always present in the fish, just like a common cold. Now this white spot is a pathogen which in the event of stress will proliferate in the aquarium. So the way the white spot works is when the fish becomes stressed, the immune system of the fish goes down, the white spot will actually grow on the fish, leave the fish, reduplicate by the hundreds of million on a hard surface, then come back looking for a new host. Now if it comes back and meets a host which is well established in the aquarium and has a good immune system, the equilibrium within the fish will control this basically with no problems. On the other hand, if it met a new fish or a fish which was significantly stressed due to either bad water quality, other fish in the aquarium bullying it, or anything else that may stress that particular fish, it will make the immune system of the fish lower, therefore more likely to contract the white spot. These parasites are very easy to identify. The fish will tend to breathe heavier, the fish will tend to be less active and look less comfortable in the water. It will flick and it will often just swim on the spot looking quite anxious or irritated. An easy physical way of seeing whether the fish have got white spot is during the more secondary phases of the infection. You'll easily see on the pectoral fin of the fish some very small white dots forming onto the fin of the fish. Along the rest of the fins is easy to see, even on the eye of the fish. As soon as you see this, you need to treat it with an anti-parasitic medication. There's many different brands available on the market which are really quite effective, providing you get the medication in there quickly and your water quality is relatively high and you don't have any carbon filters which will suck this medication out of the water. Generally, it's quite easy to control, and the earlier you get onto this disease, the easier it is to cure. It's really important to give it at least 2 weeks after you've totally cured the disease before you think about adding new fish to the aquarium, because white spot is a contagious disease. The new fish are quite likely to contract the disease as well. So white spot is quite common. The key is to be able to identify if they do get it, so therefore you can treat it. Treat it as soon as possible with what you understand to be the most effective medication which is available to you. Increase the amount of salt, then monitor your fish.